Well, very happy Thanksgiving to everyone that is watching this, and welcome into the PNR show. My name is Paul Intro Rothrock, your host as always, and today we've got college football playoff predictions plus award predictions. Should be a great one. Hey, if you haven't already, go ahead and share this with your friends and your family. Subscribe on YouTube, plus click that follow button on Spotify. That'd be greatly appreciated. And as I said before, happy Thanksgiving. I'm thankful for everyone that is watching this. But let's start with this Saturday, the game, Ohio State versus Michigan at noon in Ann Arbor, 30 degrees and snowing. This is everything that we have been waiting for. When we talk about the greatest rivalries in sports, when we talk about the greatest rivalries in college football, this one is at the top of the list every single time. It is just one of blood. It is one that is hard hitting. It is one that is fast. And every single year, it is what makes college football great. Ohio State's coming off their 42-9 win versus Rutgers. They were without Jeremiah Smith and without Carnell Tate in that one. They're questionable for the Michigan game, so we'll see if they come back. However, I do think that it is likely they do come back. The question is, though, how effective are they? Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, they are two of the most elite receivers in all of college football, and I think they'll be able to come back. But if they aren't fully 100%, how effective is this Ohio State offense going to be? Well, we saw it against Rutgers last week. In the first half, they weren't effective at all. In the second half, they got it going with the help of Max Clare, their tight end, who's also elite. So we'll see how he does in the game. They also have Brandon Inniss, who's their wide receiver 3, and he's elite. They have guys on the outside. And really, the focus for Ohio State in the Rutgers game and for the past 2 weeks is to be able to get the run game going. They ran for 254 yards against Rutgers, which is a great game. They had 200 plus in the game before that. And so the question is, how does Ohio State approach this game? We've seen the past 4 years, Michigan has won 4 in a row. Every single time, Michigan has outrushed Ohio State. And it's been because Ohio State has tried to play the game that Michigan wants them to play. They've tried to out-physical them and outman them, and they've tried to say, it's almost a sense of pride for Ohio State. They've tried to say, we're going to be better at what Michigan does, and we're going to just do it better. But that doesn't work, because every time these two teams meet up, whether it's in Columbus or in Ann Arbor, it's a matchup game. Throw the stars, throw the rankings out the window. It doesn't matter. These two teams are the same, and it comes down to who plays better, who coaches better, who makes less mistakes. We saw last year a lot of mistakes from Ohio State. Excuse me, I got to take a sip of water. But we saw a lot of mistakes from Ohio State last year. And so I think they've got to be able to come into this game this year and say, we're just going to be ourselves. And that's what Ryan Day has talked about. He's talked about and used the mantra, be ourselves. We saw this last year for Ohio State following the Michigan loss when they came into the playoffs. Remember, they played Tennessee and they came out gunning. They threw a deep ball to Jeremiah Smith, and then they just absolutely pounded everyone by getting the ball to their playmakers and being themselves. And so I think what makes a great football team is it's not about the X's and O's, but about the Jimmy and the Joes, right? It's about who you have. And so you've got to be able to use your best players. And so I think that's what Ohio State has learned. I think that's what Ryan Day has learned. And that's what I think they'll hopefully do in this game, hopefully for the Ohio State fans. And so for Michigan, they're following a 45-20 win at Maryland. That was Bryce Underwood's best game in a Michigan uniform. He had 215 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions. And so that's the big thing for Bryce Underwood, is that we've been waiting to see for him is when he's been able to be a little bit more accurate, when he's been able to not turn the ball over, when he's been able to be efficient. We know how good he is as a runner, right? When coming into college, we thought of this guy as like a Lamar Jackson 2.0. We know he can run, but the question is, can he pass the football? Can he sit back and pass? Well, for Michigan, it's got to be able to come off of the run game. See, an effective pass game, specifically with a team like Michigan, has to be able to balance off of their run game. When they run the ball and they get the run game going, then they can hit the play action. Then they can hit the short drag routes and get Underwood, who's a freshman, going. So we've been waiting to see this from Bryce Underwood, and he really got it together last week, and he's been playing much better. So we'll see how he plays in this game against a really good Ohio State defense. This is the number one defense in the country. They get after it. Matt Patricia calls the defense really well. He does a great job of disguising coverages. And even when you can tell what coverage Ohio State is in, they still do a really good job of bracketing players and knowing and taking away who the offense wants to get to. So Matt Patricia does a great job of that. And this Ohio State defense, led by Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese and Caden Curry and Caleb Downs, we know they're going to make plays. The question is, can Bryce Underwood take care of the ball? Can they throw some wrinkles in there where they get the ball to Andrew Marsh, their leading wide receiver? Can Bryce Underwood run the ball? We'll see. Obviously, Michigan, as always, is going to have some wrinkles that they throw in there for the Ohio State game. They do this every year, but the question is, how disciplined can the Ohio State defense be? But I think it always comes down to the Ohio State offense. For the past 4 years, we've seen that. Maybe not the first 2 years where we really saw just explosion from the Michigan offense, but specifically the past 2 years, it's been the Ohio State offense that has not played themselves. They've tried to, again, out-physical and outman Michigan, which isn't what Ohio State does at all. There's a reason why they recruit these 5-star wide receivers and this 5-star quarterback, and they have Julian Sayin and all these playmakers. It's because they want to get the ball to them. Like, that's modern-day football, and that's what Ohio State does best. And so they've got to be able to do that in this game. Jordan Marshall for Michigan, he did not play last week against Maryland. He should be back for this one. He's their leading running back. We'll see what he does. Andrew Marsh has quickly turned into wide receiver 1 for them. Davis Igbinosin will get the matchup with him. So that's going to be a really fun matchup to see. Again, 30 degrees. It'll be snowing. It'll be everything leaning towards Michigan. But ultimately, the question comes down to, can Ohio State be themselves? And I trust Ryan Day. Coming off the national championship, I don't think they're going to make the same mistake 3 years in a row. And so I think Ohio State wins. Despite the stakes, despite everything, I think Ohio State goes into Ann Arbor and wins, let's say, 31-21. It'll be close, but Ohio State pulls away late. So that means Ohio State will be going to the Big Ten Championship. One more sip of water, excuse me. And I think they'll face Indiana in that one. Ohio State versus Indiana, really interesting matchup. Obviously, last year they played each other and Ohio State dominated in that one thanks to special teams and thanks to their defense. But this is a different Indiana team. Curt Cignetti has quickly turned the Hoosiers into a really powerhouse. They are elite, and make no mistake, this is a good football team and a team that can win the national championship. So I don't know what the spread for that game will be, but look to it to be closer than you think. Maybe a 2.5, 3.5. Ohio State and Indiana in Indianapolis. Indiana plays Purdue this week. They haven't really played up to par in recent weeks, but they get a chance to bounce back versus Purdue in a rivalry game. I think they will. And one thing we do know is that the winner of the Big Ten will get the number 1 seed in the college football playoffs. We've seen that from the playoff committee, and we will see that. The winner will get the number 1 seed. Fernando Mendoza for Indiana, he's the Heisman frontrunner. He is so good, man. Like, I think really the Penn State game is when I knew that he was the guy. You talk about a Heisman moment. That's a Heisman moment. To be able to come back in that game and to be able to lead his team all the way down the field and score in that way. Fernando Mendoza, 30 touchdowns, just 5 interceptions. He is elite. They have guys on the outside. Again, this is a matchup game. Indiana is better than last year, and they can win the Natty. However, I think Ohio State, coming off the Michigan win, looking for their first Big Ten championship in 5 years. Remember, the last time they won the Big Ten championship was 2020, COVID year, against Northwestern. Ryan Day has talked about it, that they're playing for hardware now. They want the Big Ten trophy. They want all the trophies, and that's what I think will really give Ohio State the edge. I think they'll get the momentum going into that game, and so I think Ohio State in the Big Ten championship will beat Indiana, and they will secure the number 1 seed in the college football playoffs. Let's talk about the SEC championship game. I've got Alabama versus Texas A&M, and that means, yes, Texas A&M will beat Texas on the road at DKR in the Lone Star Showdown. Listen, in this game, I think Texas A&M has everything to lose. Right, with a loss, they don't go to the SEC championship game, and they likely don't have a first-round bye. And so I think they've got to win this game in order to put themselves in a scenario where they can win a national championship. Because, yes, obviously last year Ohio State didn't have a first-round bye, but I still think it's beneficial to have that time off. And so I think Texas A&M wants this one. They want to win an SEC championship game. With Texas, there's not as many stakes on the line. I think they won last year with Quinn Ewers at Kyle Field, but this year they already have 3 losses. And so even with a win, I doubt they make the playoffs. We talked about that a little bit last week. But Texas A&M surely has more on the line. And the problem with Texas is their defense has only gotten worse throughout the season. Remember, this was a defense coming into the season that we thought had the potential to be the best in the country, and they really were that early. Against Ohio State, they played well. In early games, they played fine. But since then, they gave up 30 points to Arkansas. Like, it was just a weird game. Remember, they had that double overtime game with Mississippi State. Like, they've just haven't been good, and they have found their offense recently, which is something that is good for Texas. But again, that was against Arkansas, who isn't a good football team. And so I think Texas is not the team that Texas A&M is. Arch Manning, he hasn't quite had the season that we thought he would have. We've talked about this on the show. He didn't play well against Georgia, and the reason for that was their offensive line was awful. Their offensive line gave him no time, and then he's going to go play Texas A&M, who gets after the quarterback more than any team in the country besides Oklahoma. And so I think that's a really, really tough ask for Steve Sarkisian and the Texas Longhorns. So I think Texas A&M beats Texas, and they make their first SEC championship game. And that means Texas A&M and Alabama will show up in Atlanta for the SEC championship game. Remember, Alabama beat Georgia earlier in the year, so they have the tiebreaker for the SEC championship game. But this one, again, you talk about momentum. I talked about this with Ohio State versus Indiana. I think it's the same thing with Texas A&M versus Alabama. I think Texas A&M, just like Ohio State does, wants that SEC championship game bad. They've never won it before. They're coming off a big win on the road versus Texas. I think that offense is going to get going. Listen, no matter what, at home, on the road, this offense will get it done. Mario Craver, Casey Concepcion, Marcel Reed, they do it. And I trust Mike Elko in that offense. I also trust the defense as well. Against Alabama, who we've talked about, where all they have is their fastball. All they have is being able to pass the football. Well, if Texas A&M is able to just rush the quarterback and get after Ty Simpson, I think it's going to be a tough day for Alabama. And so ultimately, again, I trust Mike Elko. I think they'll be battle-tested in that one. And I think Texas A&M wins the SEC championship game and gets the 2 seed. However, for Alabama, I don't think they'll be knocked out of the playoffs because, again, the playoff committee has talked about not punishing teams for going to a championship game and losing. And I think that's really important. That's something we need in the college football playoffs. So I think Alabama will be in the playoffs, but I don't think they'll get the 2 seed. I think A&M gets it. Let's talk about the ACC championship game. This one has gotten really weird. The favorites to make the game are Virginia, who is number 1, SMU, and then Pitt. As for Virginia, they play Virginia Tech at home, and they control their own destiny. So all they have to do is beat Virginia Tech, and they're in. So far, they're 9-2 overall and 6-1 in the conference. SMU, they play at Cal, and they also control their own destiny. Now, they have 3 losses overall, but again, in the conference, they're 6-1, so they're tied with Virginia. Going to Cal, that's not an easy game. Make no mistake. Remember last year, Miami played that crazy game with Cal. Now they have a really good freshman quarterback who came from Oregon. That's not an easy game for Kevin Jennings and SMU, but still, they control their own destiny to make the ACC championship game. And then for Pittsburgh, Pat Narduzzi, partially right. They do, kind of only care about ACC games. I guess that's all that matters for them. But they still need some help to make the playoffs. And so that's where I think Pat Narduzzi went wrong. Obviously, if they beat Notre Dame and then won these last 2 games, they'd be in a prime position to make the playoffs. However, they have to play Miami. They do play it at home, though, and it is going to be cold. I think it'll be about 40 degrees. It favors Pitt, so we'll see how they do in that game. But, again, they do need some help. So they have to beat Miami, and then either Virginia or SMU has to lose, and then Pitt will make the game. But I do think that Virginia and SMU will take care of business, and so that's where I think the ACC championship game happens. SMU, they started off rough, but they have won 3 straight games. Virginia has only won 1 straight. SMU has beat Louisville by 30. Remember that. That Louisville team that beat Miami, that Virginia barely beat, SMU beat by 30. And I think when you talk about SMU and you remember them from last year, what Rhett Lashley did for that team and what Kevin Jennings did for that team, this is a good football team. Make no mistake. And so I think they're ready for this moment. If they make the ACC championship game and they're looking ahead and they're saying all we have to do is win this game and we're into the playoffs, they've been there before, and I think they're going to do it. Quarterback Chandler Morris for Virginia, he's having a great season, but again, I don't think Virginia is as complete of a team. And Rhett Lashley and Kevin Jennings, they have been there before, and I believe in SMU, and so I think they win, and the Ponies are going to the college football playoffs. The Big 12 championship game, I think this one is pretty self-explanatory. I think we're going to have Texas Tech and BYU, a rematch of the 2 best teams in the Big 12. Listen, I love the Big 12 and what they're doing this year. I think it's really revitalized the conference. When Texas and Oklahoma left, I was thinking, I don't know how good this conference is going to be. But, credit to Kalani Sitake and Joey Rodriguez as well. Joey McGuire. They've done a great job of keeping their programs in contention. And I think both of these teams have a shot at going to the playoffs easily. And so we have a rematch in this one. Tech won earlier in the year, 29. BYU had 7. It was domination in that one. But remember, that one was in Lubbock, Texas. So it was a home game for the Red Raiders. This one will be obviously a neutral site. In that game, Bear Bachmeier, he struggled for BYU. He was just never able to get going. And though since then, he's been good. He played really well against TCU, played great against Cincinnati. I believe in him, and he's a great quarterback. He's a great quarterback, absolutely. And so I think he'll play better in this championship game. I do think this one will be closer. Kalani Sitake will have his team ready. He's an incredible coach, but so will Joey McGuire. These 2 coaches, as I said before, are some of the best in all of college football. And so it's really a battle of matchups. Who has the better players? And I think Texas Tech has the better players. Again, Joey Rodriguez, he's one of the best, if not the best, linebackers in college football. Their quarterback, Baron Morton, he's really good. They have guys on the outside. And so I think Texas Tech in a rematch will win again versus the BYU Cougars. The question is, does BYU still make the playoffs at 10-2? Again, those 2 losses are coming to Texas Tech both times. And remember, the committee has already said that they will not punish teams for making the conference championship game and losing. And so I think that's something that the playoff committee has to think about. They have to stand their ground and say, absolutely, BYU should be in. If they're already in right now, in the playoff rankings, they're 11th right now, but I think they make the playoff, or excuse me, they make the championship game and then they lose. They should not be punished for that. And so I think the question is, does a 10-2 BYU make the playoffs? Now that we've got the championship games rolled out, now we can really look at what the playoff structure will look like and our predictions for that. Again, as we talked about before, Ohio State will have the number 1 seed, the winner of the Big Ten championship. I think the 2 seed will be the winner of the SEC championship. Texas A&M, those won't change. I think that's what we've seen from the playoff committee before, and that's what I think we'll continue to see. Number 3, I think, will be Indiana, the loser of the Big Ten championship game. Remember, at this point, they'll only have 1 loss, so I don't think those top 3 will change. It'll be some order of those 3, most likely. Number 4, I think, will be Texas Tech, the winner of the Big 12 championship. Now, when we've done predictions in the past, we think about the loser of the SEC having the 4 seed. However, I think Texas Tech, with a 1-loss season and winning the Big 12 against a very good BYU team, I think they'll get a bye. And so I think it'll be Ohio State, Texas A&M, Indiana, and Texas Tech with the byes. Now let's go 5 to 12. The 5 seed, I think, will be Georgia. Remember, at this point, they won't have made the SEC championship game, but they will only have 1 loss on the schedule. And so I think that's where they'll go at the 5 seed. I think the 6 seed will be Oregon. Again, same deal as Georgia. Didn't make the Big Ten championship game, but only has 1 loss. So I think they're a really good football team, and they'll get in at 6. Number 7, I think, will be Oklahoma. And this, I think, tells, based on what the playoff committee has done before. They've slotted Oklahoma, obviously, above Alabama, but they've also put them above Notre Dame with only 2 losses. So I think Oklahoma will get the 7 seed. The 8 seed, I think, will be Notre Dame. Again, we talked about that head-to-head matchup with Miami. I don't think that'll come into play. Potentially, Miami loses to Pitt, or I don't think Miami will even get close to being compared to Notre Dame. So I think Notre Dame will easily get the 8 seed, and I think 9, this is where things get a little interesting, will be a 10-3 Alabama. Remember, they'll finish the regular season 10-2, but then they'll go to the SEC championship game and play Texas A&M, where I think they'll lose. But again, if the playoff committee holds to their standards that they provided, saying that teams who make the championship game but lose will not be punished, I think we have to see Alabama at 9. And so Notre Dame will play Alabama. That's the 8 versus 9 matchup. What a game that would be in South Bend, Indiana. The Tide going to play that one. That'd be fun. At 10, this is, again, where it gets interesting. I think BYU, same type of thing when it comes to Alabama. The committee has said they will not punish teams for making the conference championship game. And so if that is the case, you cannot punish BYU for losing 2 games to a team who has a bye in Texas Tech. And so I think BYU will travel to Norman, Oklahoma to play the Sooners. And then I think the 11th seed is the ACC champ, the SMU Ponies. I think they'll go to Oregon. What a game that would be. Again, 2nd year in a row that Rhett Lashley and Kevin Jennings make the playoffs. SMU will be the 11th seed. And then the 12th seed, I think, will be the American Conference champion, Tulane. And so I'll start to draw this out for you guys. Again, the byes, number 1, Ohio State. Number 2, Texas A&M. Number 3, Indiana. And number 4, Texas Tech. The 5 versus 12 matchup, Georgia will play Tulane. The winner will go to play Texas Tech. The number 6 versus 11, Oregon will host SMU. The winner will go play Indiana. The number 7 versus number 10, Oklahoma will host BYU. The winner will go to play Texas A&M, and then Notre Dame versus Alabama, and the winner will play Ohio State. I think that's going to be a really great playoff. You look at the matchups in that one. Oklahoma hosting BYU, Notre Dame, Alabama. The winner of Georgia and Tulane will go play Texas Tech. Can you imagine Georgia playing Tech in the playoffs? That'll be fun. By the way, I know I've said this all the time, but can we please have the buys, the second round at home? Like, what are we doing? Why does Georgia have to go play Texas Tech in some neutral site at a corporate event? I don't understand it. It's like we're punishing the top 4 teams in the country for having a successful season. It's like you would almost rather have the momentum with hosting a playoff game than just traveling somewhere across the country and then having to play. Like, I think that's ridiculous. But again, if you look at my playoffs, I think this is something you might have noticed, but there's no Ole Miss. And that's because I think there's been too many distractions around Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. I think they lose to Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl. I think, again, Mississippi State has everything going for them. They want to win that game. And for Ole Miss, a team with that many distractions, I don't think that helps at all. I think Lane Kiffin will leave. I think he'll likely go to LSU. But if you're a team, can you imagine your head coach is about to leave and you trying to play a game, a rivalry game? I just think there's too many distractions. And with all the negative traction, I think the committee leaves them out. I think at that point they'll be 10-2. They won't have made the SEC championship game, so that doesn't come into factor. And then their head coach, their main play caller, will leave. Remember, his decision comes after the Egg Bowl. So I think they'll just have too much negative traction for them to be able to make the playoffs. And I just feel bad for the players. You know, like I said, can you imagine your head coach leaves after you lose a rivalry game and then you don't make the playoffs, and it's like, wow. You know, Lane Kiffin, he's a grown man and he can make his own decisions. But this is something I want to say, and I say a lot. The grass isn't always greener. Sometimes, as what's his name? As Dan Lanning said, the grass is damn green. You know? Sometimes it's just green where you are. And you can certainly win a national championship at Ole Miss. Make no mistake. You can absolutely do that, Lane. And so him leaving, I think it's the wrong decision. But hey, if it's a decision that he has to make and he feels he should make, more power to him. Let's do awards predictions. This one should be fun. We're closing in on the Heisman. We're closing in on all these awards. And this is really a time of the year where things kind of settle down and we really start to look back on the season as a whole. So we'll go through 5 awards here, and we'll start with the Coach of the Year. I think it goes to Joey McGuire, head coach of Texas Tech. We talked about him earlier in the show, but the job that he has done at Texas Tech is just stellar. This is a guy who came from high school football, and to be able to turn this team in the Big 12 to a national championship contender. Again, they can certainly win the national championship. They went 8-5 last year. They went 6-3 in Big 12 play. And for them to come this year and only have 1 loss and a chance to win the Big 12 championship and have a bye in the playoffs, that's incredible. And it's really a better job than any other coach in the country has done. He'll make the Big 12 championship for the first time in school history. So I think Coach of the Year goes to Joey McGuire. The Davey O'Brien Award, this is given to the best quarterback each year. I think this one is plain and simple. Fernando Mendoza, another guy that we talked about earlier in the show. He is just so good, man. So good. He makes the right throws. He makes the right trajectory on throws. He makes the right decisions. He has the arm strength. He can roll out of the pocket and make plays. He is everything that you want in a quarterback, and I'm happy for him. Like, for a guy to come from Cal and then to go to Indiana, and now he will probably be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. You know, shout out him. Shout out him. He's done an incredible job. He has 30 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He has the most touchdowns in college football. This isn't talking about his rushing numbers, by the way, and he still has Purdue to play. He still has the Big Ten Championship to play. He's led Indiana to an undefeated record so far. They beat in Oregon. They had that huge game against Penn State. So Fernando Mendoza, I think he wins the Davey O'Brien Best Quarterback in College Football. The Doak Walker, another obvious one, a guy we haven't talked about so far today, Jeremiah Love. He is so good, man. He is just electric. I hope, if you're watching this and you haven't seen this clip, go and watch his spin move versus Pitt. Like, it was unbelievable. Like, the type of player he is. When you think about a video game type player, well, he's a video game type player, and he's put up video game type numbers. 1,300 yards, 17 touchdowns, 3 receiving touchdowns. He has single-handedly carried Notre Dame on his back. You see him on the graphic on your screen. He wins the Doak Walker easily. Like, there's no contention. This one, though, there will be a little contention for this one. That's the Biletnikoff, goes to the best wide receiver each year. This one is interesting because you talk about, well, who's the best receiver and then who's had the best statistical season. Well, I think historically it's gone to who's had the best statistical season, right? It's a balance. And I think that goes to Makai Lemon. So he's my prediction for the Biletnikoff. You can say what you want, but he's had the best season out of any wide receiver in college football. He's had a better season than Jeremiah Smith. I get it. Jeremiah Smith, he's been doubled. He's been hurt a little bit. He's played less games. But Makai Lemon, despite the 3 losses on USC's record, he has done everything he can to keep that team afloat. And every time Jaden Mayava is looking for a receiver, he throws it down. He throws it down the field, and Makai Lemon's down there somewhere. He is an elite receiver. He's had an incredible season, 78 receptions, 1,100 yards, 10 touchdowns. He had 2 against Oregon. He's an incredible receiver, and so I think he gets the Biletnikoff Award. And then the final one, the big boy, the Heisman. Here's my top 3, and here's what I think the 3 that will go to New York will be. I think it'll be Fernando Mendoza, Julian Sayin, and Jeremiah Love. And so, again, this is another thing where you think about who's the best player, who's had the best season, and who's had the best statistical season. Well, again, in the past, you think about Travis Hunter winning it last year. I think it comes down to who is the best player. Who is, when you think of college football this year, like, that's the guy. And so, to me, I think only one guy has had that type of moment, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, but I think it's Jeremiah Love. I think Jeremiah Love is your 2025 Heisman. He is unstoppable. Again, the heart and soul of Notre Dame. That spin move against Pitt, nasty. That sealed it. That sealed the deal. And so, a running back hasn't won it since, I think, was it Barry Sanders maybe? It's been a long time. No, Reggie Bush. Reggie Bush was the last time a running back has won it. But Jeremiah Love, I think he's just as good as Reggie Bush was in college. Like, you put their highlight tape side to side, it's pretty similar. Jeremiah Love, he's an incredible player, and I think he wins the Heisman. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to Mendoza. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to Julian Sayin. I think it'll be a tight race, but ultimately, I think Jeremiah Love wins it. Folks, thank you so much for listening to the show. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice. You probably can because I can hear it, but I've been a little bit sick. But the reason that I still continue to do this is because I love doing this. I love this sport, and I love you guys, the fans, everyone who is listening to this. And so I'm thankful for that, and have a happy Thanksgiving and happy holidays. We'll be back next week, but enjoy the holidays and enjoy football. Paul Intra Rothrock signing off.